Ready, set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about 15 to 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
Leave no doubt tonight. They shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night.
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
All right, what's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Apologies there. So, craziest thing, you guys that watched the last stream may have seen that I had the issue where my foot kept hitting the thing to cut the monitor off. Well, this time, apparently, when I sat down in my chair, I rolled over the cord that plugs into the router there. So, my internet cut off literally as soon as I started the countdown to the stream. Started freezing. I was like, what's happening? Couldn't figure it out. Took me a second to figure it out. Then finally got it plugged back in, and it took it another 60 to 120 seconds there to turn back on. So we're good now. Apologies there, guys, but appreciate everyone here popping in for this CRW live stream here, June 5th edition, and it's time. You know, been saying it was going to be coming for a while, these WVU football roster updates. Once the transfers were added to the university's official roster, which just recently happened. So this will be one of multiple roster updates coming throughout this offseason leading up to fall camp. We'll still have to add the true freshmen to the roster as well, some of the JUCO signings. So still will be more, but this will be maybe the biggest WVU football roster update here of the offseason, as 24 new players, I think, have been added to the West Virginia football roster. So we'll in turn update our roster tracker here on the CRW, and I'll highlight those new additions to the roster here as we'll go through that. That'll be the main crux of the show here. And then in the back half of the show, do have a couple of WVU basketball roster updates to talk about there. One that we kind of teased a little bit in the past. We took Abraham Oyudir off the transfer out list. We knew that he had exited the portal, just didn't know if he was going to return to WVU or what was going to happen there. Officially, he is going to be returning to WVU, so we'll update the roster there on that side. And then also, similarly, another transfer that we were worried about his eligibility, seems like it's going to be all good there, and his signing was finally announced. So a couple of updates on the basketball side at the tail end. But like I said, the main crux here will be the WVU football roster update to add these transfers in. But appreciate you guys watching live on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. Those of you that are on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel so that you can get the pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes in addition to the live streams here. And if you're watching on YouTube, whether live or on the playback, be sure hit the thumbs up button, help us out with the YouTube algorithm. We'd appreciate that as well. If you're in here live, got any questions, comments, throw them in the chat. I'll try and get to those throughout as well. But I want to lead off right away and get into this WVU football roster update. So let's pull this up here first. This was the tweet that WVU put out here on their social media account. That I was like, oh, yes, it's time. Finally, looks like the roster updates here. Of course, if you go to the link, you can see details about all these players. But if you want to get to them quicker, you can go to our transfer update playlist where we talked about each one of these additions, even showed highlights of most of them in the past here when they first committed to WVU. But you can see the 24 new players here, the transfer class, the post-spring class, as I like to call it here, in the post-spring transfer portal window for the Mountaineers, officially on campus, has joined the roster. And so we can go ahead and start and go over these roster updates. Let's talk about it. Let's update our roster officially now that these guys are at WVU. Don't have to worry anymore about these guys. They are on campus and on the roster. All right, so no changes at quarterback here. Of course, didn't add any quarterbacks. No one else has left since our last update there at that position. Running back. Now, this is where we have multiple additions here at this position. We've added, of course, Jalen Knighton, which you guys saw one of my favorite transfer additions in this post-spring portal window, and maybe one of my favorite overall on the offensive side when you look at both portal windows, really. Then we have Cannon Katzer, redshirt junior, added to the roster as well. Currently, he's listed, Cannon Katzer's listed as number 30, Jalen Knighton listed as number 22. We'll see if these numbers remain true the closer we get to game one. I'll try and do a jersey number update again once we get there. And then Sincere Bowers, the really talented JUCO addition there, number 23. He's going to be a sophomore there on the roster. All three of those running backs, you guys heard me talk about each of them in the past. I think they're all really good fits for a Rich Rod scheme. Cannon Katzer coming from, the Division II level, really talented team there at Ferris State. Sincere Bowers, one of the higher rated junior college running backs in the country. He looks explosive on film. And then Jalen Knighton's a home run waiting to happen. Has got it done at the Power 5 level in the ACC at two different programs, Miami and SMU. So excited about him. He is coming off of an injury, but I think if he bounces back from that, in the best way, he's got a great chance to, share the most carries on the team with Jaheim White, who will have the most, but, maybe be that guy that's right there behind him as running back number 2. And of course, you guys heard me talk about Ty Edwards being the power back on this team. So I really like the way the running back room is shaping up, and let's not sleep on Dior Hubbard. He turned heads in the spring here as a redshirt freshman. So a lot of good names there in that running back room with those 3 new additions here as we highlight the new transfers into the roster. So thus far, we got Jalen Knighton, we got Cannon Katzer, and we got Sincere Bowers as roster additions here that we're going to highlight. Let's go to the wide receiver position here, where yet again another spot with multiple additions. And we knew that would be the case, mainly because we knew West Virginia needed to target outside receivers. I think all 4 of these players that we're going to talk about have the potential to be an outside receiver. At least 3 of the 4, I would say, are for sure probably. So, that's one thing that we knew. We had a lot of, more inside receiver types, more slot types on the roster already. Needed to go out, get some more size, get some more speed, and guys that can play wide. So that's what we went and did. And we add Logan Ramper to the roster. He'll be wearing number 18, according to the official roster right now. Redshirt senior, of course, coming in from Slippery Rock. And he brings something a little bit different to the table than really anyone else on this roster right now. Maybe you could say Jaden Bray. He has decent size, but Logan Ramper has even more so at 6'4", 215 pounds, and has good athleticism to go with that, good length. So not only is he a definite outside receiver, but he brings, length and range that not really anyone else on the roster has currently for WVU. And like I said, we want to add outside receivers. We want to add speed. Maybe no guy fits that bill more than Justin Smith-Brown, the wide receiver West Virginia added. He'll be wearing number 11. He'll be a redshirt senior as well. He's coming from South Carolina State. You guys saw me react to his film when he committed. I really like the speed that he brings to the table. Excited about that. And then we also have Jordan McCants. Now, he's the one addition of the four that we're highlighting here that I think is maybe not necessarily an outside receiver. He kind of still has more of that slot receiver, type body, that inside receiver, and kind of fits in with some of the other guys that we added in the first portal window. But he's another speedy guy. Coming from Jack State, he was arguably, their fastest receiver, save for maybe Cam Vaughn, who we added in the first portal window there. And I think that, he's a guy with multiple years of eligibility left. So you take that upside with Jordan McCants. And then last, but certainly not least, a Power 5 transfer in coming from UNC, Christian Hamilton. He'll be a redshirt sophomore, listed as number 17 right now. Outside receiver, speed, and a high ceiling. This guy was highly sought after coming out of high school. People thought in his redshirt freshman season last year he might get a chance to play a lot. Didn't end up happening, was more, reserved a little bit down the depth chart. But a lot of people thought he was going to be kind of the man coming in at outside receiver for UNC this season. Instead, decides to hit the portal, comes to WVU, and he has potentially 3 years of eligibility left. So I think, you look at the future of the room, if you're able to keep a lot of these guys together, you do have some good pieces that have multiple years left, with Rodney Gallagher, who we already had on the roster, Cam Vaughn, who you guys know was my favorite addition of that first portal window, Cyrus Straw, who was in that first portal window, Christian Hamilton, who just came in that we're talking about now. So I think the wide receiver room's shaping up nicely. They went out and got some guys that are going to help you right away with additions, like Justin Smith-Brown, Logan Ramper, and a lot of those in that first portal window, while mixing in some young guys that can potentially help now and down the road. I still think Cam Vaughn's wide receiver number 1 on this team, in my opinion, but I'll be anxious to see who's starting on the other side there. Will it be Jaden Bray, or will one of these guys that we just brought in compete on the outside? Logan Ramper, Justin Smith-Brown, Christian Hamilton. Those are the ones I want to highlight there at the receiver position. New additions to the roster officially now. Let's go to tight end. And at tight end, we have 2 new additions to the roster, but I do want to momentarily mention Noah Braham, because if some people may have not seen the roster update put on the channel last month at some point, I think it was, but he was one that, we had on the transfer out list when we did those, transfer updates that just came in a slew there after the spring game. And he had, looked like he was going to transfer out, but apparently withdrew from the portal and popped back up on the university's official roster after previously being removed. So he's back involved here at tight end. I think that's important because that gets you up to 6 now with the 2 additions you have already, and a lot of guys that are capable to help this season, I think. But let's highlight the additions to the roster, and maybe no bigger transfer portal pickup in this post-spring portal cycle than Grayson Barnes, the senior, joining the roster. I think he's coming in to be tight end number 1. You guys have heard me rave about him a lot. A hell of a receiving tight end. Some, the type that West Virginia doesn't get often. I liked Cole Taylor and what he did, a couple years ago with the Neil Brown regime. But I think Grayson Barnes, on paper, looks like he can bring that plus more to the game. He was almost, the go-to guy in the receiving game for Northern Illinois. And, when you look, when I went over that video and did the college football 25 ratings, talking about all these, power conference or FBS additions for West Virginia, rather, he was one of the ones that's ratings really surprised me. One of the more higher rated ones that West Virginia brought in the entire portal class, as I said there. And his speed was really impressive. So I think that he's really going to surprise people with how he can get open downfield to help attack that side of things. To go with some really good blocking tight ends West Virginia has. Not to say he can't get it done there. He does hold his own in the blocking game as well, but he really impresses me as a receiving tight end. And then you add Ryan Ward. He'll be wearing number 84, redshirt freshman, coming from UNC. This is a guy that was a big-time recruit at the tight end position, and I like what you did here, and you did this at multiple positions, and I'm going to continue to highlight this. You had number 80, Grayson Barnes, who's a redshirt senior, a senior, going to come in and help you right away, probably be your starter this season, give you, really good help here in 1 year. And then you add a young guy that's going to help you for multiple years, you hope, with Ryan Ward, a redshirt freshman that has huge potential. And you start to like how the tight end room's looking for West Virginia. You really do there. You got a good amount of experience mixed with some underclassmen, and you like the way that looks. So let's round out the offensive additions here with the offensive line here. Who knew was added to the offensive line? Still waiting on a couple, surprisingly. Yeah, the one that really stood out to me is West Virginia announced this transfer portal class, right? And no Mikkel Clay was listed. So I found that a little bit curious. I'm wondering if it's going to be something where he's a later addition, or did West Virginia, one of these guys that they brought in towards the end decide to, bring him in instead of Clay? Was that West Virginia's decision? Was that Clay's decision? Is he still going to come? And I think that's one to keep an eye on, because he was the guy that West Virginia prioritized early in this portal window and went after. I think he was the very first commit we had in this portal window, but he's the lone, addition that really wasn't added when West Virginia highlighted that transfer portal class. So we'll see what happens with that. But as far as names that were added to the roster today, still have some very important ones here. And you guys know probably my favorite offensive line addition of this portal cycle, none other than Carson Lee, redshirt senior offensive lineman. He'll be wearing number 55. Technically a power conference transfer, because he did spend the spring at Mississippi State, but he spent a lot of time before at Eastern Michigan. So we'll have two Eastern Michigan guys contributing on this roster: wide receiver Man Singleton and offensive lineman Carson Lee. And one thing I'm going to be keeping an eye on here with Carson Lee is he has the potential to play guard or center. Is West Virginia bringing him in to be the starting center for a year, and then let Landon Livingston kind of learn behind him and then take over the spot next year? Or are they going to say Landon Livingston is really good at center, let's put Carson Lee at guard? I think really, to me, it probably ends up depending on who do you feel like is your best five offensive linemen. If you feel like both Landon Livingston and Carson Lee are included in that five, then you keep Livingston at center and you play Lee at guard. But I would be shocked if Carson Lee's not a starting offensive lineman for WVU this season, just my personal opinion. And he has been added to the roster officially now, as has Donovan Haslam, redshirt junior, coming from Austin Peay, probably the biggest roster addition for West Virginia here in this portal class, size-wise, for sure, right? Big addition to the offensive line here. I want to get his numbers correct. So I'm looking at the official here, because he's even bigger, because I think when he signed, we had him listed at 330, but you look at the official roster, now that he's been out of there, he's 6'3", 341 is what they have him listed at, interestingly enough. So there are some differences in the sizes of the roster additions here on the offensive line. So I do want to highlight that. Malik Ogbo, number 65, he'll be wearing redshirt junior, one of the other power conference transfers coming in from Texas, now joins the roster, and excited about him. I think he's got a chance to compete on the interior for West Virginia this upcoming season as well. Played a lot there at Texas, played particularly tackle, but he was kind of used as a reserve, like tight end, and when they went heavy blocking situations. And he's one that's interesting to me because he was listed at 6'4", 300, and he's listed at 270 now that he's been added to the official roster. So we'll see what happens there with Malik Ogbo, but I think he has really good potential. Excited about that pickup for the Mountaineers here, just like I'm excited about Aiden Bussell. He'll be wearing 66, a redshirt sophomore, coming from Mississippi State, another one of those power conference. I'm not Mississippi State, excuse me, Tennessee. I was looking at the wrong name there. Aiden Bussell's coming from Tennessee, and a power conference edition, highly sought after as a freshman, one of the higher rated offensive lineman recruits in his class, ends up in the SEC at Tennessee. Things don't work out there, ends up coming here to WVU, and now hopefully will play out his career here as a Mountaineer. I think he's a great fit, and he's coming in at 6'5", 310, guys. So, I know he's only a redshirt sophomore. He's a little bit younger than some of these other guys we've talked about, but I think he's coming in to compete as well. I think that's what you look at with all these additions that West Virginia brought in here that we're highlighting in this portal window that have been added to the roster, are guys that they're bringing in to say, hey, we brought in, 4 or 5 guys we feel like can start in the first portal window. Let's bring in 4 or 5 guys we feel like can start as well in this portal window and let those guys compete, and we'll go out and let the best man win. Then not only do we have good competition for our starting offensive line spots, but we also have a really good 2 deep no matter how it turns out, probably, because we're going to have 9 to 10 guys that we can trust in there, which I think is a good strategy here for the Mountaineers. So Aiden Bussell joins the roster. Trying to make sure I didn't miss anybody here. I think we got one more. Yeah, there. Josh Isosa, redshirt freshman, number 59, and similar to Malik Ogbo, when West Virginia added Isosa, I think we talked about him being 330. He's also listed at 270 on the roster, but he's only a redshirt freshman, so plenty of time for him to develop, grow into the frame if they want. And West Virginia, I think, is going to use him on the interior. He's played multiple positions, even has experience playing center some himself. So we'll see. Right now it looks like West Virginia has at least Landon Livingston and Robbie Martin at center. They'll probably add one more guy there. Will that be Carson Lee? Will that be Isosa? I think we'll wait and see what happens there moving forward. But I love the addition of Isosa, Power 5 edition coming from Oklahoma. West Virginia, if you look on the roster here, we have a ton of linemen from the SEC now, as those are the transfers I wanted to highlight. But you look, Isosa came from Oklahoma. Aiden Bustle coming from Tennessee. That's 2 SEC additions on the offensive line. Malik Ogbo coming from Texas. That's 3 SEC additions on the offensive line. Carson Lee spent the spring at Mississippi State. That's 4 offensive SEC additions on the offensive line. Kimo Makaneole is coming from LSU. That's 5 SEC additions on the offensive line. And then Tykees Crawford coming from Arkansas. Make it 6 SEC offensive linemen that have joined West Virginia from the transfer portal to go with some really talented other players coming from other spots as well. So I really like what West Virginia did with this offensive line in this portal window to go with what they did in the first. And I think when you combine those two things, West Virginia has a good chance to have a decent offensive line this upcoming season, which is something we were all worried about, right? But I think they've brought in players that are really going to play well there, really fit the hard edge mentality, and hopefully help this Rich Rod offense operate. So we'll see who ends up being the starters there. I think that's going to be, I know quarterback will be the one that gets the headlines as far as position battles, which we're going to have a ton all over the field. But I think offensive line may be the most interesting to watch, just to see who ends up being that starting 5 on that offensive line for the Mountaineers. So there's the offensive side. Let me take a second here, come back and catch up with you guys in the chat really quickly before we hit the defensive roster additions here. Take a swig of my coffee before I do that, and then we will hit the defensive transfer additions here as we continue to go through with this WVU football roster update. Know this one's a little bit lengthy, but hey, 24 new transfers to talk about that we've added to the roster, which of course we've highlighted more in depth in the past, but excited to officially add them to the roster now. All right. Channel member Trey Edwards, appreciate you, man. Says good evening. Drum Wolf says, let's go Mountaineers. Always Drum Wolf. Let's see here. Silas says, let's go. Beat LSU. Hey, that's right. Shout out WVU baseball. Super regional. First game Saturday at 2 against LSU. Let's go Mountaineers. Let's go on. Get that win. Let's go to Omaha. Win that series there. LSU's a really good team. Going to be tough. But, man, West Virginia, I got faith in them. Let's see here. Silas says, how are we feeling about Rich Rod's secondary? I definitely like the additions, which that's perfect, transition, which we'll get into highlights of those here momentarily. But I really do like the way things are shaping up with a lot of the portal additions they made in that first portal window, specifically when we're talking about the secondary. I think they did such a good job in that first portal window. They didn't have to go out and get too many pieces here in this one to help. One major piece, which you guys know that I love the pickup we had at safety, which I'll highlight more momentarily. But I think they've really if our secondary is not finally improved like we've been hoping for the past couple of seasons or so, it's not from a lack of trying, because they went out and gotten some really good players. Let's see here. Drumble says lots of interceptions. Hey, I hope so. Viper Strike, appreciate you, man. It's new. I don't think I've seen your name in the chat before. Hope you subscribe to the channel. Stay up to date on WVU football and basketball news. He says, I think the days of soft play is over. I'm hoping to see the head-hunting, tone-setting WVUD we used to see. Take the field with swag. Love the way you put that, Viper Strike, and I think it's going to happen, man. Hard edge is back. We're going to see that physical football again on both sides of the ball. Let's see. I think that we're all caught up pretty much here now. But I just wanted to come back, catch up with you guys in chat, let you guys know, I know this one's a little bit lengthy, but hey, give you a little bit of a break in between there before we talk defensive side of this roster update as West Virginia adds, the 24 players on the transfer portal class to the roster officially now, which I'm super excited about, and appreciate you guys that are tuned in here live this evening, whether watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Those of you on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the CRW YouTube channel, subscribe here to get our pre-recorded videos, podcast episodes, all that good stuff where we talk a ton of WVU football and basketball news. And if you're watching on YouTube, whether on live or playback, you can help us out by hitting that thumbs up button. It helps a ton with the algorithm. If you didn't get a chance to chat here live with us, throw your thoughts in the comments. Appreciate those interactions as well. With that being said, let's switch over. Let's talk about the defensive additions because we do have some big time ones here, I think. Starting right off the bat with one that's going to be a big time player on the defensive line here, Eddie Kelly Jr., senior edition, another power conference edition for the Mountaineers, currently listed as wearing number 1. Be interesting to see that if he does continue to wear that, because I think Jamori Robinson's going to be number 0. And if those two guys both start on the defensive line, have a 2D lineman wearing 0 and 1, that'll be, something I don't think I've seen before. But Eddie Kelly, a really good pickup for West Virginia out of Missouri. And then Devin Grant, you guys know, I think he kind of flew under the radar a little bit because he was kind of one of the more later additions of this transfer portal window. And people look at, where he comes from at Incarnate Word and sleep on it a little bit. But hey, let's not forget, he began his career at Colorado. And I didn't know he had bulked up to be as big as he had. I thought he was coming in to probably play Bandit, but I was surprised to see he was listed as defensive line on the roster. And he's up to, 267. So he definitely could play on that defensive line. So I think when you look at Devin Grant, Eddie Kelly, and Jamori Robinson, who West Virginia added in that first portal window, via the portal, I think you've added 3 guys that could potentially all be starters. I mean, we'll see how it shakes out, but those guys are all going to get a ton of playing time, I think, not to mention the guys that you return, the Eddie V's, who's back as a grad student, Hammond Russell, who's a redshirt senior, Sonny Redwood and others. I think that you're going to have, a chance to have a good, solid 2 deep on a defensive line rotation potentially as well, with a chance to, employ multiple packages. You want to have, you want to go 4 D linemen and have, 2 bigger guys there in there and have 2 edge rushers, whether it be Jamori Robinson and Devin Grant, Jamori Robinson and Eddie Kelly, or you want to put Eddie Kelly in there more on the inside. That's what I like about Eddie Kelly. He has the flexibility to play inside or outside, I think, on that defensive line. So I'm excited about these pickups for the Mountaineers, and those first 2 that we highlighted there may be my favorite 2 pickups on the defensive line in this portal window. You guys know Jamori Robinson's probably my favorite pickup for the Mountaineers in the portal class overall over the entire thing, which, there's been a ton. Obviously, you see a lot of new faces on the roster, 50-some new transfers. These are 24 that we're highlighting here. It's going to be 70-some new players on the roster for the Mountaineers overall once the high school players get on campus as well, which we'll cover in a future roster update. Also added to the roster, we had Elijah Simmons. He'll be wearing number 94, redshirt junior, and he's a junior college edition, actually, coming from Garden City. And I believe that's all we had there on the D-line. No additions to the bandit position that are listed as bandit on the roster yet. I still wouldn't rule out, some of these guys on the roster maybe playing some bandit. I think you could see Devin Grant there. You could see Jamori Robinson, play that type of role potentially. Eddie Kelly, surprisingly even did a role kind of like that at Missouri, despite being, nearly 300 pounds. He's really athletic for his size. I don't think we'll see him do it at WVU, but you never know. And then I think, one of the linebacker additions we're about to talk about, you could see him maybe play some as well, which let's go ahead and highlight him then since we're talking about him. And that's John Lewis, listed as number 12, redshirt senior, another power conference edition, technically the second edition from Mississippi State, if you count Carson Lee from Mississippi State, because that's where John Lewis is from as well. And he is a really fast linebacker, and I think he could maybe play some bandit for the Mountaineers and be utilized for pass rushing capabilities because of that. And I think that's one thing that you look, West Virginia made it a point to solidify not only the secondaries we were talking about earlier, but really solidify the pass rush, getting a lot of good edge rushers. John Lewis is a guy that's known for pass rush. Braden Siders, obviously known for pass rush. And, maybe the best kept secret of WVU spring was Curtis Jones Jr. really standing out at that bandit position as a pass rusher. And then that's not to mention the edge rushers that you have on the D-line, like Jamori Robinson, Devin Grant, a lot of those that we've highlighted. I think pass rush should be a strength for the Mountaineers this year if everything gels right and they find the right places to put these guys in. But John Lewis is a linebacker addition for the Mountaineers. And then the other linebacker addition for the Mountaineers, Ben Bogle, number 32, redshirt junior, coming from Southern Illinois. And I think, I mentioned Devin Grant being one of the more underrated additions. If he's not, it's definitely Ben Bogle. Maybe a little bit undersized. I think he's listed at 216 on the official roster right now. He was listed at 225 when we picked him up. So, that does worry you a little bit. Will he have to add a little bit more size here? He can add it quickly in a hurry with Mike Joseph and be able to compete this season. But I think he's a guy that could be a potential, tackling machine at the linebacker spot. When you look at him on tape, he's really impressive. So I do like the pickup of Ben Bogle, John Lewis. I think they're good names to add there to the linebacker spot, because I think West Virginia had a couple of solid starters in, Chase Wilson, who we brought in Colorado State. You guys heard me rave about him in the first portal window. Reed Carrico really impressed me last season. I think both those guys are going to be good starters. I think you really just needed some good guys to fill out your two deep there. John Lewis, Ben Bogle will have that potential, especially when you add them to the roster with guys like Ben Cutter, who's been here for a while now, Caden Beiser, who's been here for a while now, and not to mention talented young guys that you brought in like Ashton Woods, the UNC transfer, who still has 4 years of eligibility. And then, of course, you still have freshman Michael Hasty on the roster as well. So now let's get into talking about that secondary that we teased up a little bit there. We do have a few additions here. Like I said, West Virginia went out in that first portal window, and we saw them go crazy with cornerback and secondary additions. That's where most of these people that are on the roster came from, was that first portal cycle, whether it's cornerback, nickel, or safety. So West Virginia didn't really need to add a ton at that in this portal window. They were able to be more targeted, more picky about who they went after, and really get guys they felt like could help the rotation or guys that could help in the future. And I think that's what they tried to get a good mix of here. And I think really potentially the safety that they added is a game changer. You guys heard me rave about momentarily, but let's start with the cornerbacks here. 2 additions. And I think with that, you get another senior addition to the cornerback spot. Funny enough, Ty Crutcher, who's coming from West Florida, but he does have that red shirt available, so maybe they could redshirt him, keep him in the future. You have a couple of seniors with that capability, and you may see them utilize that because they have so many seniors on the roster now. You look, West Virginia really went out in the portal, targeted experienced guys that have played a ton of defensive back, and brought them in and said, let's let these guys compete. And if we're not good in the secondary, something's wrong, because we're bringing in guys with experience that have been good at other stops. And when you look at Devontae Golden Nelson, redshirt senior, Derek Carter, redshirt senior, Jordan Scruggs, redshirt senior, Michael Coach Jr., senior, and he's maybe the gem as far as secondary additions for West Virginia via the portal. Lockdown corner there, Michael Coach Jr., Jason Chambers, also a senior, and then we just added Ty Crutcher, another senior from West Florida. So you can see they're just alone on seniors, 6 cornerbacks for the Mountaineers on the roster, which is, not necessarily a bad thing by any means, because behind them you only have, 3 underclassmen. So you certainly needed to add bodies there at the cornerback spot, and I like what West Virginia did there. But then you added the young guy here from App State, which of course comes via the Rod West connection, who's West Virginia's cornerbacks coach now. Same goes for Jason Chambers, who was added in that first portal cycle. But Nick Taylor is one that you're adding, hoping to help you more, I think, in the future than now, and also it just helps round out those bodies at cornerback, give you, practice body and someone that's going to help you potentially in the future. And if your cornerbacks coach, who was with him previously, has enough faith in him to bring him into his next stop, I think that says something. So we'll see what happens with Nick Taylor down the line. That's what West Virginia brings in at the corner spot. No new additions to the nickel safety currently for the Mountaineers. So we go to the safety spot where West Virginia adds 2 names. They do add a junior college addition here from Dodge City in Caleb Gray. And much like I've talked about throughout these transfer additions, West Virginia has added players. If they've added multiple guys at a position, they've added a guy that can help now and a guy with the chance to help for multiple years. In this case, Caleb Gray is that guy that has potential to help multiple years. Coming from Dodge City as a redshirt sophomore, he'll be wearing number 28, according to the official roster. But then, this is the addition you guys have heard me rave about a ton, and I think rightfully so. I think Darian Lewis is a big pickup. I think he's coming here to potentially start for the Mountaineers at one of the 2 safety spots. I'd be shocked if he didn't. Akron's best safety on their team last season. I think West Virginia got Akron's best corner in Devontae Golden Nelson and got Akron's best safety in Darian Lewis, who will be a redshirt senior wearing number 24, has now been officially added to the roster, which brings us to the final transfer addition to the roster here, 24 of 24 for the Mountaineers that they've added over the past couple of days to the official roster now, and that's Cade Hensley, the redshirt senior kicker coming from Coastal Carolina. He'll be your starting place kicker, and I believe Ethan Head, that West Virginia brought in from Tulane, will probably be the kickoff specialist, if you're asking me. So there are the roster updates. Other than that, I'll try and go through closer to fall camp and do a jersey number update. You may have noticed there were some that changed since the spring as we went through the roster, highlighting the transfer additions there. But also we'll have another roster update in the future to add the WVU football freshmen to the roster, as they'll be enrolling here in the near future as well. But there's the transfers. There's the roster update here on this live stream. So, man, that was a mouthful. Knew that would be lengthy and be a huge part of this stream, but wanted to cover that for sure with you guys here. May try and clip some of that out and put it up on a pre-recorded video as well to add to the WVU football roster update playlist. But with that being said, I'm taking a swig of my water, then we'll get to the quick basketball roster updates I have as well to go over really quickly. As I know it's getting late and I don't want to keep everybody up too late, myself included in that. But I think we had some potential big news on the basketball side as far as roster additions are concerned, because Chance Moore, obviously we've talked about him a ton. He committed, way back when, but we were concerned because all of West Virginia's other transfer additions had already been signed and added to the official roster. He was the lone holdout. And when we went and looked, we realized the reason was because he'd already technically played 4 seasons, but would probably need a waiver. Looks like that's going to happen, though, as he's listed as a 5th year now and has been officially announced by the university. If they're announcing it, I think we're in the clear. That's the way I'm going to take it anyway, especially since they've signed him and added him to the official roster, which we'll take a look at momentarily. But, of course, Chance Moore officially added, 6'6", 210, senior guard from Georgia, comes from Chance has the ability, size, and physicality to impact both sides of the ball and impact winning at a high level. He is a high-character individual who will align closely with the values of WVU, the state of West Virginia, and our basketball program. Last season at St. Bonaventure, Moore averaged 13 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.3 steals while starting 31 of 32. He scored in double figures in 21 games while ranking 10th among all A10 players in rebounding. That's big, especially being a guard. Has the good length there at 6'6", though. Which is exciting. In his final 2 postseason games, Moore had 19 in the A10 quarterfinals before finishing with 16 in the NIT against Kent State. He had season highs of 27 points and 12 rebounds. And then also talks about multiple 20-point games he had there. We also know he played at Missouri State. Of course, that's when he came in and played WVU, which, funny enough, he had 24 points and 8 rebounds at West Virginia in the season opener. So he's already played in the Coliseum and played well in the Coliseum, which is what we like to hear. Was at Arkansas before that. So multiple stops for Chance Moore. Now finds his way back in Power Conference basketball after beginning there at Arkansas, making it a full circle for Mr. Moore here, as he is now added to the official roster for WVU, and his signing is finally official. But one thing I wanted to highlight here before we wrap up the press release that West Virginia highlighted here was I did not realize how highly regarded he was coming out of high school. In the 2021 class, he was a top 100 recruit and listed as the number 4 overall prospect in the state of Georgia by ESPN. So, maybe the most underrated addition to the basketball roster is Chance Moore, because, all the headlines are going to go to, probably Eagle staff first or Honor Huff. And then you're probably going to start hearing people talk about Brendan Lorient. You're going to hear people mention, the 7-footer, Obioha. But it seems like not a lot of people mention, Chance Moore, who I think has got a chance to make a big impact this upcoming season. He may not be starting, but he will be a key player for West Virginia, I do believe, with a ton of experience, as this will be his 5th year playing. And then the other update that I had, of course, was to talk about something that we've talked about previously. We kind of saw the writing on the wall that this would probably be the case, but now official. As you see Keenan Cummings from Rivals sharing this on social media, that the WVU basketball program is now up to 11 scholarship players, with the return of redshirt freshman big Abraham Oyedir, who we removed from our transfer out list, I think a couple of streams ago or so. And now we were waiting to see, is he going to return to WVU? He officially has, and he is now back on the official roster as well. So let's pull that up. Let's highlight the basketball roster really quickly now with these 2 new additions. So everyone that's committed to the Mountaineers via the transfer portal or high school has signed, except for Jaden Forsyth. We're just waiting on Jaden Forsyth, the other high school addition for the Mountaineers, to sign. I think that'll put them at 12. So, there are technically 3 spots left on this roster. I think the Mountaineers still will probably go get another big, even with Oyedir rejoining the roster, and probably still another guard. So I'd say at least 2 more additions for the Mountaineers. Maybe they won't get to 15. Maybe they will, but we'll see what happens. But let's take a look here. Of course, you have Trayson Eaglestaff listed as a forward, which was surprising. I was kind of expecting him to be listed as a guard. He played some point guard even last season for North Dakota. But I think that speaks to him probably playing the 3 here at West Virginia. That's why they're listing him as the forward, because, you guys heard me talk previously. I'm expecting the starting 5 to be Jasper Floyd at the point guard, Honor Huff at the 2, Eaglestaff as the 3, Brendan Lorian at the 4, and Obi Oha at the 5. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. I think that's why Eagle staff's listed as a forward, 6'6", 190. Then you have Jackson Fields listed as a forward, 6'8", 210 senior. Going to be a key big man for the Mountaineers coming off the bench. Going to be one of your key reserves, much like Chance Moore that we just talked about. And then Jasper Floyd, point guard of the team, 6'3", 190 senior, coming from North Texas. Of course, Honor Huff, the 5'10", 170 guard, another senior coming from Chattanooga, the nation's leader in three-point makes last season. Brendan Lorian, 6'9", 215 forward, listed as a senior. He also, of course, withdrew his name from the NBA draft. We saw both the Eagles staff and him put their names in. They've both withdrawn. Of course, here they are in the official roster. And Brendan Lorian, is really talented as well. He's super, super athletic. Mountaineer fans are going to be excited to watch him throw down some impressive slams this season and grab a lot of rebounds, block a lot of shots. A 6'9", 215 senior, said coming from North Texas, he'll be the starting 4 for West Virginia this upcoming season. If they want to go small, you can maybe even play him at the 5. Chance Moore, like we just talked about, you see him now on the official roster. Been waiting on it. There it is, 6'6", 210-pound guard. Of course, the 5th-year player there coming over from St. Bonaventure. Then we have Harlan Obioha, 7 foot, 280-pound center, senior, coming over from UNC Wilmington. And there he is, Abraham Oyedeer, back on the official roster. That's why he's the only player with a picture, because he's the only player that's been on this roster before. The other ones will still have theirs coming up here once we get closer to basketball season. 6'9", 221, back as a redshirt freshman. Here with the Mountaineers. Originally a native of Ghana, spent some time there at California at the Academy of Sports Science. That's where the Mountaineers got him from. And maybe he'll get some minutes this year as a reserve big man. We'll see if West Virginia adds another. If they don't, he certainly will. But I'm expecting West Virginia to probably add another. We'll see what happens. And then, of course, one of the freshman additions, DJ Thomas, this is a forward, 6'7", 210, coming in from Allen, Texas, Allen High School there. Previously a North Texas commit, follows Ross Hodge here. So there's an update on the basketball roster. Now that we have added both, of course, Chance Moore now officially, and Abraham Oyedeer has returned. The other update that I had basketball-wise was unfortunately not as positive, and that is one of the recent transfer targets we talked about. West Virginia was targeting Ryan Cornish, a guard from Dartmouth. Told you he was talented. That's why he ends up at USC. We averaged 17 points per game, but he commits to USC there on 3 share on that. So let's go back to our transfer tracker one more time on the basketball side, remove his name, and we'll wait to see what other players West Virginia targets here that we can add in the near future. We know Orlando Horton Jr. is a previous target that, still remains uncommitted. We'll see what happens with him. I would expect another big man to join this list in the near future, but we'll continue to keep you updated as I think West Virginia will bring in another transfer or two still yet, but we see the basketball roster rounding out. And I think at this point, save for if West Virginia brings in another big man, that being the exception, we see kind of the main contributors already on the roster as we go over it there for the small WVU basketball roster update to accompany our WVU football roster update as well. So that's what I had for you guys. Other than that, I'm going to catch up on some of your all's comments here, and then we will call it a stream. Appreciate you guys tuning in here, whether you watched on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube live. If you watch live on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to that YouTube channel and subscribe here. Get our other content as well, in addition to the live streams. If you watch on YouTube, whether live or on the playback, you can help us out with the algorithm by hitting that thumbs up button. If you didn't get a chance to throw in your thoughts here live, throw them in the comment section. Appreciate those interactions as well. All right. See where I can get to where I left off here in the chat. Hey, Viper Strike, this is perfect. He said you would never see Rich take a knee to leave the score down on Narducci. That's for sure. Hey, that's right. Rich Rod will run it up on his ass. And I think that's so fitting, because I literally put out a tweet today talking about, all the hubbub about Beanie Bishop and stepping on the pit logo in the Steelers locker room, which, hey, get your own facilities. You don't have to worry about that. But I digress on that. I thought it was just hilarious that Pat Narducci over there at Pitt put out a tweet talking about class and respect, and I had to retweet it on the Country Roads webcast Twitter and say that's so ironic coming from the biggest douchebag in the world to be tweeting about class and respect. So you love that you call him Narducci as well, Viper Strike, and I agree. Rich Rod definitely will have no sympathy, and it'll be much different, the dynamics here between the two head coaches when they meet in the backyard brawl, for sure. Drumwolf62 says, at minimal, this team will be bowl eligible. Look out for the following year. It could be a special year. Agree with you, so much so that I took the over on the 5.5 win lines that DraftKings had. I think we're going to be a bowl team for sure. So I agree with you, Drumwolf. Kenny Evans, are you going to do WVU game-by-game predictions every year, brother. Appreciate you, channel member Kenny Evans. That'll kick off our podcast season every year, every August. Me, Brad, and Steven will get together, season prediction roundtable. This will be the 8th annual. Well, this will be season 8 of the podcast. Hard to believe I've been doing the podcast since 2018. Now, you guys have only seen us on YouTube since, 2021, I think. But yeah, I've been doing the podcast since 2018 and always kick off the season with the season prediction roundtable. And we'll do those game-by-game predictions then, Kenny. Can't wait to get to them, man. Excited for it. Leslie Roberts says, hey, appreciate you. Hey, it's okay you jumped on here late, Leslie. You can go back and catch the beginning and all that. Appreciate you popping in at any time you choose to do so. Hey, and of course, never count you out either, James. He says, I'm here. Don't count me out. Hey, James, I never count you. I know you're good to tune in, whether you watch live or on the playback. I always see you here. I see you on the other channel as well, JCCFB, which is really cool also. Kenny Evans says, do you see us in the top 25? Great question, Kenny. I'm guessing you're talking football, and I think personally it could happen. It very well could happen. It's going to happen in the Rich Rod era. It's not going to be like the Neil Brown era. If it happens in year 1, then I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule potentially, right? But it definitely could happen, and I definitely think we will get ranked under Rich Rod in the AP poll. That drought will finally end for sure. I'll give you that much there, Kenny. So super excited, guys, about this upcoming season, man. I'm happy that these transfers are officially on the roster now. Happy to get these roster updates back rolling here as we get set for fall camp. And in the lead up to that, of course, like I said, we'll have another roster update to add the high school players. We'll have a jersey number update the closer we get to fall camp. And then, of course, a depth chart update, which if you want to see those continue throughout the season, you can become a channel member here to get those depth chart updates after each game, the injury report after each game, the player grades, the snap counts, the film review, all that stuff if you become a channel member here by hitting the join button in the video description or on the YouTube channel homepage. And we appreciate our channel members here. Those guys help keep this mic recording and that camera rolling. But we appreciate all you guys as long as you subscribe here to the channel, whether you're a member or not. And if you are here watching, we appreciate you just as much. So be sure to hit that thumbs up button on YouTube before you head out. Be back to chat again here in the near future. We'll have a lot more news coming up, both in basketball and football. Like I said, I think we'll still have transfer portal news coming in short order on the basketball side. And then we'll have more football roster updates throughout the offseason and a lot of fun position previews to cover as well in the lead up, which I will do now here in the near future. Once we add those high school players to the roster, get that roster solidified. I think Rich Rod said by July 1st, they want to have it solidified. So probably around then, maybe early July is when I'll start that position preview series, but I'm going to go through and talk about each position on the roster in depth. So just some stuff to look forward to there in the future on the channel. And just to let you know, just because it's the off season, the content doesn't stop. We'll keep it rolling for you guys here that watch live on Facebook or Twitch, that watch live on the playback on YouTube. And don't forget, you guys listen on the audio side as well. No matter what platform you listen on, leave us a rating. That helps us out there. Appreciate you guys as always. Hope you guys have a great night and have a great weekend coming up as we head into Friday, guys. One of the best days of the week, right? TGIF coming up. So super excited about that, guys, and super excited for the lead up to the Coach Ross Hodge debut season and the debut of the Rich Rod 2.0 era. And we'll continue to cover everything in the lead up to both of those here on the Country Roads webcast. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz. And until next time, let's go Mountaineers.